One of the first images in Resident Evil 2 involves a pallid cop slouched against a wall. Leon S. Kennedy, one of the game's protagonists, lifts the cop's head gradually. A gaping gorge of flesh is revealed. In this moment, a young man is confronted with the startling concept of his own mortality. The Resident Evil franchise has always dealt with the horrors of the body, and the new remake of Resident Evil 2 is no exception. With increased visual fidelity that previous entries could not achieve due to the technological limitations of the time, the Resident Evil 2 remake's pulpy use of gore and flesh underscore the horrifying and fragile connection we have to our bodies. To explore this idea further, it is best to look at the work of a great director who has always dealt with the theme of the flesh. No, not him. Him.
My first movie was a bit of a scandal in its native land. I wrote something that I think I initially called Orgy of the Blood Parasites, and then became The Parasite Murders, and then became Shivers, and in the US it's called They Came From Within.
David Cronenberg has always used the pulpy B-movie narrative to obliquely interrogate the concepts of the mind and body, particularly the vulnerability of the mind once the body mutates.
Well, for example, as Brundle begins to deteriorate and becomes hideous, he speaks for me. He says, I'm not sure that this is a bad thing, you know? He says, I'm not sure that maybe this is more godlike, what I'm turning into. Maybe the other is a sort of a mere superficial aesthetic thing, but this creature that I'm becoming, as parts of my body become irrelevant and I put them in this little museum and to remind myself of where I was, but this new creature that I am, which on the surface might be ugly and hideous and horrible and a deterioration, is in fact a recreation.
In his film Shivers, a work that deals, frankly, with sex-crazed zombies, Cronenberg uses a cheesy, frivolous horror genre to cheekily expose the inherent fear of sexual violence that comes with our being. It is here where his genius as a filmmaker lies, in exposing the horror of being made of flesh and blood, and the violent impulses, sexual desire, and impending disease and decay that comes with being a full-body human. The mind's inability to reconcile with the needs and defects of the body is where the horror comes from.
If you see one of those things, uniform or not, you do not hesitate.
In Resident Evil 2, this idea is explored at every turn, as the B-movie trappings of the cheesy dialogue and narrative obliquely comment on the very real fear of the infected body. Through the skinned, blood-soaked abominations known as the Lickers, to the pale-eyed, decomposing zombies, the young, naive protagonist, Leon, is starkly confronted with the inevitable deterioration of his mind and body. Even other characters in the narrative, such as William Birkin, confront the fragility of the flesh in the midst of disease and infection.
You don't get away that easily.
Birkin's evolution from ordinary human being to a bulbous crimson nightmare literally replicates the story of Brundlefly from David Cronenberg's masterpiece, The Fly. William Birkin and Brundlefly transform in mind and body once the disease hits, while Leon S. Kennedy fights to preserve his identity both in mind and body. Through studying David Cronenberg in Resident Evil 2, it can be seen that the infinite perception and wisdom of the mind is, in itself, a slave to the impulses and impediments of the body. Resident Evil 2 is a stark reflection of this reality, where a young protagonist is faced with the decay of his physical and psychological identity. And with that, the Resident Evil 2 remake is not just a video game. Thank you so much for watching the video. I just want to give a brief shout out to my other video game channel, which I do with the comedy legend I'm a Pizza. It's a fun time, check it out, the link's in the description. We have a lot of fun filming those, so I hope that you subscribe and take a look at our work. Also, check out my other It's Not Just a Video Game video, which just released. It's a very cool video, I think. I'm proud of it. It's about Hideo Kojima and Andy Warhol. Please check it out, and that link is in the description as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned.